The Congressional Budget Office has provided yet another data point reinforcing Senator Bernie Sanders' argument that increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour would have a budgetary impact, allowing for that legislation to pass through a process known as reconciliation. Reconciliation means that a $15 an hour minimum wage could pass with a simple majority in the Senate. Now, in order for that to happen, the proposed legislation has to qualify under a regulation known, or a rule I should say, known as the Byrd Rule. And the Byrd Rule stipulates that the proposed legislation would have to have an impact on the federal budget in order to qualify under the reconciliation process. Now, there's already been research and data indicating that increasing the federal minimum wage would do just that. But now the Congressional Budget Office has provided another data point, which is really great news. Now, here's Senator Bernie Sanders making the argument in favor of passing a $15 an hour minimum wage through reconciliation. Take a listen to what he just said.
We are going to make our case to the parliamentarian that we absolutely believe that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour is consistent with the rules of the Senate and the reconciliation process. And I believe, look, when you have half of the people in this country living paycheck to paycheck, when all over this country you are having workers trying to survive on $9 or $10 an hour, or even less than that, the American people want, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. It is popular, it is what the people want, it is what justice demands. So I'm gonna fight as hard as I can, and I believe that we will succeed in including the minimum wage in the reconciliation bill.
So he's right. I mean, there's really nothing in that interview or in that comment that I disagree with, and honestly, the data does bear it out. So the Congressional Budget Office just released more data, and this is what it says. What it does is it compares the budget impact of a $15 an hour minimum wage to what happened after the Republicans passed tax cuts for the rich, right? Bernie requested this analysis because the Republican Party passed the tax cuts for the wealthy through the reconciliation process. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? And so here's what the data says. The analysis of the Raise the Wage Act encompasses a much broader range of behavioral effects than that of the 2017 Tax Act. And the increased minimum wage would in turn affect a broader range of budget functions than CBO estimated that the change in the mandate penalty would. And the mandate penalty was when Republicans successfully ended the mandate tied to the Affordable Care Act, just to give you more context. Increasing the minimum wage would affect more budget functions than CBO estimated that the Arctic National Refuge or Wildlife Refuge drilling provisions would. So they're offering examples of things that Republicans successfully passed through reconciliation that had less of an impact on the federal budget than increasing the minimum wage would. And when I say impact on the federal budget, I mean positive impact. Because guess what? When people are paid more, what happens? They're less reliant on the social safety net, on government programs to provide for themselves and their families. And more importantly, they're making more money, meaning that they can provide more to the federal government in the form of tax revenue. Okay, so this is like what, the third or fourth study that we've talked about on this show, providing evidence that a $15 an hour minimum wage can pass through the reconciliation process. It does qualify under the Byrd Rule. And so if Biden is gonna listen to the US Chamber of Commerce and they're whining about increasing the minimum wage, he'd be making a big mistake. And I highly recommend that Senator Sanders continues fighting for something that's long overdue in this country.
You know, I think that one of the biggest problems that we have in this country is not accepting the reality that there is a system that has been in place that drives the belief that certain people aren't worthy of more in this country, right? And so when you talk about the benefits, one of the benefits is the crime rate goes down as well because people are making more money, right? And those suburban women that Donald Trump was protecting from us moving into their neighborhoods don't have to worry as much because we're making a little bit more money where we can survive. My concern with this attitude about who deserves what in this country is if the minimum wage does go up, then how those jobs become accessible to people in marginalized communities. Because the problem is that in this country, when we get more, we start allocating more to who we think deserves more. And usually that means white people that are from better areas, and marginalized people get left out of it. So I just hope that, this country needs a paradigm shift more than anything, because the attitude towards the poor, the homeless, the struggling, the marginalized, the immigrants is so bad in this country that when there is more, then people start deciding who's worthy of it. And that's where I'm always like, oh, how do we get this to everybody and not just the people who they think are worthy of it?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at most minimum wage earners, Black and brown communities are disproportionately represented in those jobs. And so increasing the federal minimum wage lifts so many people out of poverty, including, of course, people of color. And it's just it's so important. No one in this country, the richest country in the world, should be working full time and then relying on the social safety net to provide for themselves and their families. It's ridiculous. And look, the thing that I don't know if like Bernie watches this show, I doubt it, but you have the facts on your side, you know it, right? You don't need another study to prove what you already know. The truth, the facts are on his side. He's got to fight. So Biden is wavering on the $15 an hour minimum wage thing. He is. After he got this letter from the US Chamber of Commerce crying about providing economic relief to Americans and how they're against it, he was like, I don't know if the $15 an hour minimum wage proposal is gonna, make it in the economic relief bill. Why? Can you tell me why? Why? Because Joe Manchin's being a little prick about it? Really? Why don't you go campaign in West Virginia as Kamala Harris did earlier? It obviously worked. Joe Manchin tucked tail immediately because guess what? People are suffering. Doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans. Doesn't matter if they're conservatives or liberals or progressive. None of that matters. We have an economic system that does not discriminate based on political beliefs. There are people of all stripes suffering under this economic system. So Bernie, Biden, you might think he's your friend, whatever, I don't care. But fight for us and don't listen to him. If he's gonna waver, I really hope that Bernie ignores him wholeheartedly.
I agree with you 100%.
And you have like the Restaurant Workers Association and no, not the, what is it? Yeah, that's right? Yes, the National Restaurant Association. It's not a union of workers. Let me just be clear. It's the organization representing the employers in the restaurant industry. They're crying about a $15 an hour minimum wage, and they're just like, if we do that, if we actually have to pay our waiters and waitresses more than $2.50 an hour, which by the way is not that far off from what waiters and waitresses get paid, for servers, I should say. It's what servers get paid right now per hour because they rely on their tips. And so sometimes they make about minimum wage when their tips are included. Sometimes they don't even make minimum wage. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're like, oh, we might have to increase the price of the products on our menus. Good, do it, I don't care. People deserve to get paid a living wage. And I don't even really believe them, to be honest with you. It's just a system of exploitation that they want to protect under any and all circumstances, and It's really frustrating. It's frustrating that we have just like a handful of congressional lawmakers who are willing to do the right thing. But they gotta execute what we need, and they need to fight, and they need to understand that while Republican lawmakers have been their enemies, there are corporate Democrats who are not on their side either, and they need to steamroll. Biden's being, he's wavering. Who cares? Steamroll. Senator Sanders, this is his opportunity. Steamroll. You got the data on your side. You have the people on your side. He's been fighting for people his entire political career. Now is his opportunity as the head of the Senate Budget Committee to execute what he has been fighting for so long.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.